Hello and welcome to the world of Commodore. Today, the Amiga 1000. What we're going to do right now is make a copy of a disk. Now what we have, I'm just going to turn this on so we can get the process started. What we have here, as you'll be able to see on the screen, is we have an Amiga, well you can't see it, but we have an Amiga 1000. And the Amiga 1000, the first thing that's going to come up after thinking about things is, it's going to come up and it's going to say Kickstart. So I am going to give it Kickstart. And then it is going to very efficiently read it in. It is. And the reason I say efficiently, it just goes chug, 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 chug. Everything is lined up pretty well. So, now we're going to put in a disk called Workbench. And Workbench, as you'll be able to tell very soon, does a little more grinding. Just going to shift this over a bit. No, just trying to get rid of the screen waggle here. Maybe we cannot. Maybe that's the right spot. Well. Oh well. Anyway, so Workbench is loading. It is. The machine you see here is indeed an original small small keyboard, small screen, chiclet, Commodore PET 2001 series machine. So, Workbench is loading, Workbench is loading, Workbench is loading. Now, what we have right now that you are hooked up to is an Amiga 1000. I'm just going to take and pop the disk out, and we do in fact have an additional floppy disk drive called a 1010 hooked up. So I've just moved Workbench to the external drive, and I now put a blank disk into DF0, which is the floppy drive inside the machine. I'm going to click on this, and then I move my mouse up here, and I press the right button, and it gives me a chance to initialize this disk. Because it is a new disk, it has not been done. So I say OK, and it's going to tell me, remember, everything's going to be erased, and I say OK. Now, hopefully, this works just tickety-boo. As you can hear, and as you can see, it is going through the tracks in sectors 9, 10, 11, and it will go, go, go. If it notices something wrong, it will tell us to stop, not to stop, it'll just say, no, this is a bad disk, go away. It will. It will indeed. It's funny, on here, I am seeing a lot of screen flash. Oh, that did not help. Sorry. I touched, oh, that didn't help either. I touched my finger. Maybe that's better. I touched my finger so it would focus in on the screen, and that did not go well. So I have now picked a spot down on the PET, and it looks some better than it was. This monitor I'm using is a Commodore 1702. It is not really meant for the Amiga, although the Amiga does have a composite video output, which is in color, unlike the Amiga 500 and others. So, and it looks pretty good, although the characters on the screen are not as crisp as one might like. They are not. Okay, so, it is now going to come up and say, empty. It is now checking over the disk. So now I'm going to take my Workbench, I'm going to drag it over here, and I'm going to ask it to copy. So I will say continue. And now, over the course of the next little while, it will read and write and verify and read and write and verify and read and write and verify. And at the end, we should have Workbench 1.3 and a copy of Workbench 1.3. We should. Can never have too many copies, just in case. So, I suspect at some point we will do this again, except I will disconnect the external drive. Because you see, this is with an external drive. This is why it is good to have an external drive. It is a very painless process, in that you don't have to do any disk swapping. But if you do not have an external drive, or if you have an Amiga 2000, a machine with 2 drives in it, then basically, depending on the amount of RAM you have in the machine, depends on how many times you have to swap the disk. So, this goes on. So we're about halfway through the copy. So, in later machines, Kickstart is on a ROM. But on this, the Amiga 1000 was the very first Amiga that was up for sale, and it was not onerous. You popped in a disc, and then you popped in another disc. And it really was kind of the start of what we have today, and now that, although not connected through the internet, because heavens, things were not done like that then. But now, if there is an error, slight updates can be made without having to replace a chip. But mostly, any changes were made on Workbench, not Kickstart. So, and when there was a Kickstart change, it was vast, and it was worthy of a new chip. So, we are almost finished. And I put Workbench into DF1, which is the external drive, and I have the original, sorry, not the one that will be copied in DF0. And that this copy has finished. And it's going to come up and say that I have a copy of Workbench. And indeed I do. So, basically, you put a blank disk in, you go to the top, where it says disk. When you're pressing down the right button, you initialize that disk, and then you drag the Workbench over the other, which would say blank, which I'm not going to do at this time, and answer the prompts, and then you have a copy of Workbench 1.3. And if you feel like it, you can also make a copy of Kickstart 1.3. Alright, I hope that was helpful. Bye for now.